Hamas accepts Egypt-Qatar proposal outlining a pathway to end the Gaza war. Amnesty International accuses Israel of deliberately starving Palestinians in Gaza. And European Council President Antonio Costa is to convene a video conference on Tuesday on Ukraine meetings in Washington. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time and you're watching Q News. I'm Hani Saif and these are the news today. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has received the Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani in Cairo, where both sides reaffirmed their strong partnership and commitment to regional stability. President al-Sisi stressed the urgent need for a Gaza ceasefire, unrestricted aid delivery and the rejection of any attempt to reoccupy or displace Palestinians. He reaffirmed that an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital is the only path to lasting peace. He also highlighted the importance of Gaza's reconstruction once a ceasefire is reached, confirming preparations for the Cairo International Conference on Reconstruction with the Palestinian Authority and the UN. Both leaders agreed to boost joint political efforts to resolve regional crises peacefully, while strengthening Egypt-Qatar cooperation in investment and security. Hamas has accepted a proposal presented by mediators Egypt and Qatar that lays out a pathway towards a comprehensive agreement to end the war in Gaza, Egyptian sources told Al Qahira News Channel. The proposal includes a temporary 60-day hold to military operations and a repositioning of Israeli forces to allow the entry of humanitarian aid to meet the needs of the Gaza Strip. As part of the plan, a prisoner exchange would take place during the truce, with Hamas agreeing to release 10 living Israeli detainees and return the bodies of 18 others. In exchange, Israel would release a larger number of Palestinian prisoners, roughly double those freed by Hamas. Hamas has described the plan as the best available option to protect Gaza's residents and a step towards a comprehensive solution to the conflict, according to the sources. The head of Egypt's State Information Service, Dia Rashwan, confirmed that Egypt and Qatar have presented Israel with a new proposal after Palestinian factions responded positively. Egypt's State Information Service says Cairo and Qatar drafted a fresh proposal based on the Witkoff plan. He added that Palestinian groups reportedly accepted the offer without reservations, and the mediators have passed it on to Israel. He says Israel now faces internal rifts and pressure, but the proposal could give Prime Minister Netanyahu's government a way out. Rashwan also urged the United States to push Israel towards acceptance, warning that Gaza's humanitarian situation cannot wait. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he is closely following reports that Hamas has agreed to a ceasefire proposal in Gaza. Netanyahu added that his impression is Hamas is under what he called tremendous pressure. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati and the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa inspected the humanitarian kitchen food supply center in Sheikh Zayed and Al Arish, run by the Egyptian Red Crescent. Social Solidarity Minister Dr. Maya Morsi accompanied the visit, which underscored Egypt's efforts to aid Palestinians in Gaza amid Israel's blockade and starvation policy. Morsi reviewed the kitchen's operations, while Egyptian Red Crescent Director Amal Imam said the center has delivered 2 million loaves of bread, over 500,000 hot meals, and 700,000 dry food packages. The Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati and the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa visited the Rafah crossing to oversee humanitarian aid entry. The Egyptian Foreign Minister, accompanied by the Palestinian Prime Minister, visited the Rafah border crossing to inspect ongoing operations facilitating the delivery of humanitarian and relief aid into Gaza. This marks the Palestinian Prime Minister's first visit to the crossing, highlighting Egypt's continuous efforts to support the humanitarian response and mitigate the consequences of the ongoing Israeli military assault on the Gaza Strip. Amnesty International has accused Israel of deliberately starving Palestinians in Gaza, warning the enclave is on the brink of famine. In a report submitted to the UN and NGOs, the group said Israel is carrying out a deliberate starvation campaign, systematically destroying the health, safety, and social fabric of Palestinian life. Based on testimonies from displaced Palestinians and medical staff, Amnesty concluded that Israeli policies over the past 22 months were designed to impose living conditions leading to physical destruction, describing them as part of ongoing genocide. Leaders of political parties in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales have urged Prime Minister Keir Starmer to recall Parliament and sanction Israel over its war in Gaza. In a joint letter, they pressed Starmer to halt UK arms sales to Israel and push for the unimpeded delivery of food, water, medicine and aid into Gaza. The letter also called for independent investigations into alleged war crimes, crimes against humanity and acts of genocide. The politicians warned that history would judge whether Britain remained silent or stood on the side of humanity amid mass civilian suffering.
We know what the next steps will be, but we're ready to support this, including through the plan.
Norway's $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund has announced it will exclude 6 companies linked to Gaza and the occupied West Bank from its portfolio. The fund said the names of the companies will be made public once the divestments are complete, following an urgent review of Israeli investments. The decision comes after criticism over the fund's stake in an Israeli jet engine group servicing fighter jets used in Gaza. The fund's Ethics Council confirmed it will continue quarterly assessments of Israeli firms. Israeli Occupation Army Radio has reported that U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee voiced support for Israel's settlement expansion in the occupied West Bank. Huckabee reportedly said the settlement push is a decision for the government of Israel to make and not a violation of international law. The E1 project has long been condemned by the international community as a major obstacle to the two-state solution.
But it's never been the role of the U.S. to dictate Israel's policy any more than it would be the policy of Israel to dictate our policy.
The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza has reported that 60 Palestinians were killed and 344 injured in the past 24 hours amid relentless Israeli attacks. The overall death toll since October 7th of 2023 has now climbed to 62,004, with at least 156,230 people wounded. Since Israel broke the most recent ceasefire on March 18th of 2025, more than 10,460 people have been killed and 44,189 injured. Hospitals confirmed 27 Palestinians were killed and 281 injured near aid distribution sites in the past day, bringing the toll from such incidents to at least 1,965 dead and 14,701 wounded. Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati wrote a message on one of the boxes sent to the Palestinian people during his visit to the Egyptian Red Crescent's main logistics center. His message read, "A message of love, solidarity, and unity with our brothers and sisters in steadfast Gaza, from beloved Egypt, its leadership, government, and people." Trucks carrying humanitarian and relief aid as part of the Zaid al-Izza from Egypt to Gaza convoy began entering Gaza through the side gate of the Rafah border crossing, heading towards the Karma Shalom crossing in the southeast of the Strip. An official source at Rafah crossing stated that the convoy, now on its 17th day, includes trucks loaded with thousands of tons of relief supplies, essential goods and food baskets, in addition to hundreds of tons of flour, medical supplies and medicines. Egypt has sent 115 humanitarian aid trucks into Gaza through the Karm Abu Salim crossing, supporting residents amid the ongoing crisis. The trucks entered the Gaza Strip after being transferred from the Rafah land crossing to the Karm Abu Salim crossing in the southeast. The delivery forms part of Egypt's ongoing efforts to provide essential supplies to Palestinians facing severe shortages. Officials continue to stress the need for increased humanitarian support to meet urgent demands. Israel's Channel 12 has reported that Army Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir revealed plans to evacuate Gaza City residents within 2 months ahead of a wider military operation. Zamir reportedly said the military will encourage residents to leave towards so-called humanitarian areas before surrounding, entering and occupying the city. The report comes as Israel holds discussions with several countries, including Indonesia, Uganda, South Sudan, Somaliland and Libya, about accepting displaced Palestinians. The remarks have fueled concerns that Israel is moving towards mass displacement amid growing warnings of famine and worsening conditions in Gaza. Ladies and gentlemen, now we head to Washington, D.C., where the American President Donald Trump is receiving the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the very much anticipated meeting today. Let's watch. These were the images of the U.S. President Trump receiving the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the White House, and we will be following later on the press conference between both leaders. But our news continue. Thousands of Palestinians are fleeing eastern Gaza City, fearing an imminent Israeli ground assault. Heavy bombardment has forced many to move west and south as Israel signals plans to seize the city. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called Gaza City Hamas' last major stronghold. Israel already controls 75% of the enclave, but military officials warned that expanding the offensive could endanger the 50 remaining hostages and drag forces into prolonged urban warfare. The planned escalation has triggered alarm internationally and mass protests in Israel, where tens of thousands demanded a deal to end the conflict and secure the hostages' release. Families of detainees held in Gaza have accused the Israeli government of political obstruction and urged international intervention, including from U.S. President Donald Trump. Other relatives demanded an immediate deal and an end to the war, saying their children were starving and terrified. Organizers said the demonstrations were the largest in 22 months of war, with highways blocked, rallies outside politicians' homes, and bonfires lit. Police arrested at least 38 people. Activists accused Prime Minister Netanyahu of abandoning the detainees as a frustration mounts over plans for expanded military operations in Gaza. European Council President Antonio Costa said that he would convene a video conference for European Council members for Tuesday afternoon to debrief about this week's meetings in Washington on Ukraine. In a post on social media platform X, Costa added that the US and EU will continue working towards a lasting peace that safeguards Ukraine's and Europe's vital security interests. Ladies and gentlemen, now we head back to the press conference held between the US President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Let's watch.
We've had a lot of good discussions, a lot of good talks, and I think progress is being made, very substantial progress in many ways. We had a good meeting, as you know, just a short while ago with the President of Russia. And I think there's a possibility that something could come out of it, and today's meeting is very important. We have, I guess, the seven very powerful leaders from Europe, and we're going to be meeting with them right after this meeting, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank you for invitation, and thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you. And using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, abducted children, and my wife, First Lady of Ukraine, she gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
Oh, I want it.
Yeah. So we're saying this sensitive topic, yes, please. And thanks to our partners, and that you supported this format, that after our meeting we can have leaders who are around us, UK and France, Germany, Italy, Finland, EU, NATO, I mean all partners around Ukraine supporting us. Thanks to them, and thank you very much for invitation.
Thank you very much for being here.
President Trump.
Do you think it's fair?
Yes, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So, President Zelensky, you say in a post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
Well, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason. A big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
And as you met with Putin on Friday, today you've got President Zelensky here. As you listen to Russia and Ukraine, which side has the better cards? Right
Well,
now?
I don't want to say that. I'm just here to be. Look, this isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war. He's the one that had a lot to do with this happening, and we want to get it ended. And we want it to end good for everybody. We want it to end good. The people of Ukraine have suffered incredibly.
And to that point, President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. You know that today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners, and we will do our best for this. So, and I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, of personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war, and we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good. Thank you.
Mr. President,
yes. If the peace deal will be achieved, are you going to be willing to send American peacekeepers to Ukraine?
Well, we're going to work with Ukraine. We're going to work with everybody, and we're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long term. This is very long term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again. We're going to make sure that everything's good. We'll work with Russia. We're going to work with Ukraine, and we're going to make sure it works. And I think if we can get to peace, it's going to work. I have no doubt about it.
Your team has talked about security guarantees. Could that involve U.S. troops? Would you roll that out in the future?
We'll let you know that maybe later today. We're meeting with 7 great leaders of great countries also, and we'll be talking about that. They'll all be involved, but there'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
Mr. President, Vladimir Putin mentioned that the war will not end without addressing the root causes of this war. Have you had an understanding what are the root causes of this war?
Well, look, the war is going to end. When it ends, I can't tell you, but the war is going to end, and this gentleman wants it to end, and Vladimir Putin wants it to end. I think the whole world is tired of it, and we're going to get it ended. It was, I've done 6 wars. I've ended 6 wars, and I thought this maybe would be the easiest one, and it's not the easiest one. It's a tough one. A lot of reasons for it, and they'll be talking about it for a long time. But they'll be talking about the others. Look, India, Pakistan. We're talking about the big places. When you look at, you just take a look at some of these wars. You go to Africa and take a look at that. Rwanda and the Congo, Republic of the Congo. That's been going on for 31 years. And so we've done a total of 6, and we really have 6, not including the fact that we obliterated, and it turned out to be a total obliteration, the nuclear, as you said, the future nuclear capability of Iran. And this one, I think we're going to get solved also. I feel confident we're going to get it solved.
Thank you,
Mr. President. Can you tell us about your conversations with European leaders and what they need to see to support an end to the war?
Yeah, well, we're going to be meeting with a great representative group and 7 very powerful, very big countries and great people, all friends of mine and friends of yours. And we're going to have some suggestions made. They want to see peace. They would like to see peace.
President Trump, you said last night
in the red.
President Trump, do you think it's fair to, for Ukraine and for Russia to achieve a lasting end that Russia hasn't yet conquered? Do you think it's a fair peace for Ukraine?
We're going to have a lasting peace. Just to answer the first part of your question, we're going to have a lasting peace. I hope it's going to be immediately. I hope it doesn't have to go on. And I think people of the whole world is going to be very happy when that's announced.
Thank you, Mr. President. You posted on social media, Mr. President, a very touching letter from the First Lady. And the letter was hand-delivered to President Putin. And it calls for an end to the war, essentially, because of the children and the children's future. Why did the First Lady feel that letter was necessary? Was it because she believes that Mr. Putin is the aggressor in the war? Is a similar letter being hand-delivered to President Zelensky?
So the First Lady felt very strongly. She's watched the same thing that you watch and that I watch. I see things that you don't get to see, and it's horrible. But when she's got a great love of children, she has a wonderful son that she loves, probably more than anybody, including me. I hate to say it, but she loves her son. She loves children, and she hates to see something like this happening. And that goes for other wars too. I mean, she sees the heartbreak, the parents, the funerals that you see on television. Always funerals. We want to see something other than funerals. No, she felt. It was a beautiful letter. It was very well received by him. And she did ask me to say, she would love to see this end. She would love to see it end. And she says it very openly, very proudly, and with great sorrow because so many people have been killed.
Mr. President, last week,
Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Yes, sir. I've got a question for each of you.
Yes.
First of all, Mr. President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good.
I said the one that attacked you last time.
Yeah.
See, now he's I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed your
Maybe yours is much better than mine. Real quickly, upon peace, God willing we get peace, are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances. And a little bit, we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, maybe, how to say, we need a truth, yes, everywhere, in the battlefield, in the sky, in the sea, yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open, legal elections.
So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now, so you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections. Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake
You like this idea?
Yeah.
No.
Speaking of news, I got a question for you. This sounds insane for me even to ask this. But do you think the American media really doesn't even want a peace deal? Because they've been so critical of you every step of the way as you lead the charge for peace.
It's an amazing phenomenon. I said that if in the settlement you got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and thousands of miles around them, they would say I made a bad deal. The level of hatred and animosity is incredible. Not with all. I mean, we have great people up here. We also have terrible people up there that I think are told what to say. But, you know, in solving all of these wars, they don't even write about it. You know, I saw major wars. I saw wars that have been going on for 31, 35, and 37, and a couple of quicker ones. One that was going to go into a full-blown deal very quickly. You know what the one I'm talking about. It was a big one. But they don't even write about that. No matter what I do, no matter what, and you know, this is not anything to do with you. It's probably to your advantage in a certain way. But no matter what I do, no matter what deal I make, from my standpoint, you'll come out good. Maybe President Putin will come out good. But they'll say, Trump was absolutely horrible. It's just that, and I've lived with that for a long time. I've lived with it since just before the first election. I used to get great publicity. Now I get the worst publicity anyone's ever gotten in office, but I won in a landslide, so the people understand. They're the only ones that count, ultimately. But I've also had great reporters. I've had journalists that are very good. But it's very sad when you do the right thing. As an example, they said, because of the fact that Vladimir Putin came to American soil, this was a tremendous defeat for Donald Trump. No, it was really wonderful that he did it. It was a hard thing for him to do, to be honest with you. It was the opposite of what they said, but they said it. Now, if he didn't come, they'd say that was also bad for Trump. You know, there's no way. And there's just a great dishonesty of the press, and I think that's why it's lost its credibility. You know, its credibility is at an all-time low. We have a thing going on right now in D.C. We went from the most unsafe place anywhere to a place that now people, friends are calling me up, Democrats are calling me up, and they're saying, sir, I want to thank you. My wife and I went out to dinner last night for the first time in 4 years, and Washington, D.C. is safe, and you did that in 4 days. I'll tell you, it's safe. I had another friend of mine. He has a son who's a great golfer. He's on tour, and he came in fourth yesterday in the big tournament where Scotty Scheffler made the great shot, and he said his son is going to dinner in Washington, D.C. tonight. I said, would you have allowed that to happen a year ago? He said, no way, no way. He said, what you've done is incredible. And I think the people realize it. But the press says, he's a dictator, he's trying to take over. No, all I want is security for our people. But people that haven't gone out to dinner in Washington, D.C. in 2 years are going out to dinner. And the restaurants the last 2 days were busier than they've been in a long time.
Sir, I walked around yesterday with MTG. If you walk around with D.C. with MTG and not be attacked, the city is safe.
Sir, on the security guarantee,
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, you warned of what you called severe consequences if a 30-day ceasefire or any type of ceasefire were not agreed to by Russia. Will there be severe consequences? Does that change because of
I don't think you need a ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept. You know, I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
Are you President Zelensky, can you explain the decision to offer Ukraine Article 5-like security guarantees, but stop short of pushing for their full membership?
Yeah, well, we haven't done anything on that yet. If you look back and you go back long before President Putin, it was always a statement that they would never allow Ukraine into NATO. So that was a statement that was made, but we haven't discussed any of that yet. We're going to be discussing it today. But we will give them very good protection, very good security. That's part of it. And the people that are waiting for us, they are, I think they're very like-minded. They want to help out all.
Thank you, President.
Zelensky that there's no ceasefire?
Thank you, President Trump.
Are you disappointed there's no
the
ceasefire,
United
Mr.
States,
President?
The United States has already given hundreds of billions of dollars to this war effort in Ukraine.
Biden.
At best, it is a stalemate, and the killing continues. So, President Trump, how much more is the United States willing to give Ukraine? And President Zelensky, how much more do you want?
Well, I'll start off just by saying we're not giving anything now. We're selling weapons. This is something before, I guess the number is well over $300 billion. That was under Joe Biden, a corrupt politician, not a smart man, never was. By the way, go back 40 years. He was not a smart man 40 years ago either. But now he's in particular bad. This was done by a corrupt administration that shouldn't have been in, and frankly, if the right results of the election were given, if I were president, this war would have never taken place, and he would have been very happy because he would have liked to have seen. I mean, they went through hell. He went through hell. This war would have never happened, and the people that were killed, a couple of million people, a lot of people with soldiers and everything else, and the people that have been displaced and forced into other areas and other countries because of what's happened, none of that would have happened. And I'm just saying that he was a horrible president, whether it was the borders or this. He was just a horrible, corrupt president.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the press conference between the U.S. President Donald Trump and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House in Washington, D.C., where they have been discussing with the press the prospects of the meeting to end the war in Ukraine. Trump being asked whether this was the end of the road for the U.S. to support Ukraine or not. He said it is never the end of the road for the U.S. Their aim is to reach a lasting and sustainable peace between Ukraine and Russia. It was not his war, it was Joe Biden's war and mistake. Zelensky was asked if he would agree to send troops to death for 2 more years or redraw the map. He said he is ready for a trilateral meeting and to end the bloodshed and the war in Ukraine. Trump was asked whether it was okay for him to send peacekeepers to Ukraine. He mentioned that yes, peacekeepers would be a good idea. Europe, since they are there, would be the first line of defense. However, the US would also be there to support. Trump stated that he ended 6 wars. He said he thought this one was going to be easy, but it's not as easy as he thought. He said it is only fair to reach a lasting peace asked if it was fair to reach lasting peace if Ukraine agrees to cede territory that Russia didn't even occupy yet. He said there are sort of obligations or conditions that a lasting peace would be reached, and still he would be discussing it with President Zelensky along with the European leaders of 6 of the main European countries that are in Washington. Asked if Zelensky would be open to hold elections in Ukraine if a peace deal is reached, he said he is open to hold elections in Ukraine and have a democratic and legal election process. Trump has been asked whether the American media was fair to him or it was really criticizing him every step of the way to achieve peace. Trump said that he is being criticized by the American media if he does or if he doesn't. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. And by this we come to the end of our news today, but here's a reminder for today's main stories. Hamas accepts the Egypt-Qatar proposal outlining a pathway to end the Gaza war. Amnesty International accuses Israel of deliberately starving Palestinians in Gaza. And European Council President Antonio Costa is to convene a video conference on Tuesday on Ukraine meetings in Washington. This concludes our news bulletin and our broadcast for today. But please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more here on Q News.